Hello again, friends and loyal Wolfpack members. Chaos Wolf here, and welcome back to Elite Dangerous. Today, we are going to be taking a look at a modded Viper Mark IV, because this ship is one of my favourite small ships in the game. I've always liked the Viper series. My first favourite ships that I fell in love with in the game was the Viper Mark III. Now we've got the Viper Mark IV. The differences between the two is the Viper Mark IV is slightly less manoeuvrable and slower, but it features larger internal capacity, so it can be a lot more tanky. And that's pretty much what we're going to be going for this time. Not only that, but we're also going to be modifying it for as much damage output as possible. Now, my normal live hardpoint setup for this would be small beam lasers and medium multicams, but we're going to go for something just a little bit different this time. So let's go and jump in and see just how we have this ship set up. Jumping into the outfitting department, we can see that in the hard points we've got 2 medium cannons and 2 small beam lasers. Now they're all gimbaled because I don't like using anything that isn't gimbaled. But we've also got, let's have a look, a chaff launcher and a heatsink launcher. The heatsink launcher because we are going to be going for shield cell banks, and we want to go and have as much sustainability as possible, so we don't want to be overheating when we're using our shield cell banks. Moving on into the core internals, you can see that we've got reactive surface composites. So these are the bulkheads that are specifically designed to be more effective against physical damage. So at the loss of thermal resistance, as you can see here, we have plus 25% kinetic resistance, minus 40% thermal resistance, and plus 20% explosive resistance. Now we are going to go and modify these up for thermal protection, so we're just going to see just how defensive we can actually get these to be. Now, as you can see here, everything else is A-rated apart from the sensors. Now, theoretically, we could go and have everything A-rated, but I always like to keep things a little bit lighter. Although, come to think of it, we've got so much weight in the ship anyway, it's not really going to be much of an issue. So let's actually go and put that in as well. It's a few tons extra, but we can go and modify these up for lightweight if need be. And in the ship's one military slot, you can see that we've actually got a 3D hull reinforcement package. Now, in other ships, I might have been tempted to go and put a shield cell bank in here, but we are going for hull tankiness as well as shield tankiness. We want to have this ship become as indestructible as possible. Going into the optional internals, you can see why I don't have a shield cell bank in the class 3 military slot, and that is because we've actually got a 4A shield generator and a 4A shield cell bank. So a 3A would really not do much to this. And the rest of this is pretty much filled with cargo racks just because we need fish in order to actually go and roll on the engineers here. And we've also got a frameshift drive interdictor, a 1A. Now, you could go and add these to be something else, but it really doesn't matter. So it's really up to you how you go and have these set up. You may want to go and have them with hull reinforcements. You may also want to have a few other things in here. It's really up to you. Personally, after modifying this up completely, I'd probably go and put in a fuel scoop. Now, as you can see, here we've actually got an 18 light year jump range, well, virtually 19, but this is full of cargo. Our actual jump range, minus the cargo, is actually going to be 19.8, so virtually 20 light years. So modifying this up, we can get close to 30, which is nothing to be sniffed at for this ship. Now bear in mind, this jump range and everything else is completely unengineered. So that means that this ship can run a lot and still be able to make do. So this is actually really, really nice to have. So we're going to go and jump into the engineer's workshop, and we're pretty much just going to go and modify virtually everything on this ship. So let's go and get started. The last thing I'm going to be doing is modifying the power plant, because for the simple fact that we want to know how much power we need before we start rolling for that, because if we have too much excess power, this is going to mean that we're going to be having too many excess negatives as well on our roll. So we're only going to roll for what we need. So anyway, let's go and see what we can do. First of all, we're going to go in and we're going to go for some dirty drive tuning. This was actually the first roll that I went and made. This is actually a really nice one as well, because we've got a massive maximum multiplier here. That is amazing. I think that's actually over the maximum. And thermal load's not too bad. Power draw increase is not too bad. Integrity, it could be better. And the optimal mass is not too bad either, actually. Considering that we've got a massive increased optimal multiplier, the optimal mass did not go down all that much. So yeah, that's awesome. For the frameshift drive, obviously we're going to be going for increased frameshift drive range. Why would we go for anything else? as for the results of this one, I've done this one quite a few times, but I've never seemed to manage to get anything above 50%, which is really strange because I used to get them fairly consistently beforehand. Now, the reason I'm actually accepting this one is because we've got 48%, which is the maximum increase I've got so far, but also the mass increase is actually right in the middle, so it's not as bad as it could be. In fact, this is actually the best roll that I've had so far. So we're going to go and keep this one. And as for the power distributor, we're going to be going for charge enhanced. Now, the reason we go for this one is because the recharge is actually increased by up to 35%, whereas the negative side is only down by about 15%, so it's not terrible. But the recharge more than makes up for a lot of this, especially if you've got an A-rated power distributor. You know what? I think we're actually going to go for this one because we've actually managed to get 37% increase to all the recharge values. Now, as we stated before, the maximum is actually 35, but we managed to get a very lucky roll on a lot of these. Now, we've also got a little bit of a better roll on the engine capacity as well, so that's really not bad. I would have preferred to see this on the weapon capacity, but, well. And for chaff, we're going to go for the increased ammo capacity. Now, our ammo capacity goes up by 39%. I've rolled this a few times, and it always seems to come out exactly the same. So I'm wondering whether this is almost a fixed roll. The mass seems to go up by roughly the exact same, and the only thing that I seem to see a variation on is the reload time. Not sure if this is a bug or if it's working as intended, though. Okay, it's time to go and mod up our composites. Now, let's remember, we've actually got the kinetic resistance ones installed, so we're actually going to modify these up for thermal resistance to go and shore up our thermal resistance deficit. Now, what this will do is increase our thermal resistance by anything from 35 to 56%, which could actually take it above what it was previously. But it's also going to go and reduce our explosive and thermal resistances by up to 15 or 16%. So, that's not terrible. And it's not a bad trade-off by any stretch of the imagination. This is the very first roll we actually went and made, and it could have been better, but we did get the maximum increase to our thermal resistance. The explosive resistance and kinetic resistance are almost negative, but they were increased just a tiny little bit by the secondary rolls. So that's quite nice. Next is going to be our hull reinforcement package. Now, normally I would go and set this up for heavy duty, but I'm not really sure this is going to be a good thing. Although, the mass increase is not really that drastic. I do wonder, though, what the lightweight reinforcement is going to be like. Now, the hull reinforcement is going to be reduced a little bit, but then again, this ship's going to be heavy enough as is. Hopefully, the dirty drive tuning we've gone and put in, hence why we don't have many thermal weapons, is going to be more than enough to go and make up for this. Now, not the absolute best of results, but it is fairly good. We're only just a little bit off from all of the maximums, and our mass is not all the way down to the negative. I have seen a couple of rolls that were slightly better on the blue, but also slightly worse on the red side of the rolls as well. So either way, we're going to go and accept this one and just see exactly what it does to our ship. Now, as for the sensors, well, I'm actually thinking of going for the wide angle sensors, one of the brand new blueprints in the game. Now, I could go for the long range, but we've already got A-rated sensors, so our range is good as is, because I'm used to flying with D-rated sensors. And the long range ones actually go and reduce the angle of scan. And there we go, this has been a few rolls in, but we've managed to get our target scan angle up to 200%. Our emission range has been reduced by 39%, which is virtually maxed out on our reduction. And the power draw is 93% increase, so yeah. We're definitely going to be needing some more juice at the end of this. Now, with the life support, we are in fact actually going to be going for reinforced. Just in case our shields do go down, we don't want our life support being taken out. So that's what we're going to be rolling on. We could go for shielded or reinforced, but shielded means we're going to be using more power. I'd rather have the more weight, considering that our ship is going to be a lot heavier anyway. And you know what? This is actually one of the best rolls I've ever seen. We've actually got a massive increase to integrity, 211%. So we got a maximum roll and an 11% over. Not only that, but the mass increase is not too terrible either. So we're definitely going to be keeping this one. As for the shield, we're actually going to be going for reinforced shields. Normally I like to go for the thermal resistance, but considering that we don't have any shield boosters to go and work against the diminishing returns that are being introduced, hopefully with this patch, then I think that the reinforced shields are actually going to work a lot better. We're going to be getting up to 30% stronger shields, so anything like plasma weapons or so on are not going to be negatively affecting us all that much. Now, the very first roll that we actually went and made is not a terrible one by any stretch of the imagination. In fact, it's rather good. We've got better than the optimal mass. Instead of actually being 30% or 29%, I think it might have been, we've actually got 32%, so that's very nice to have. We've also got increases to all of the resistances, so that's very nice as well. Nowhere near as much of an increase to resistance as if we went and specifically tailored the shield to that specific type of resistance, but it's still very nice to have a general overall increase to resistance. The broken regen rate's gone down a little bit. It's only 11%, which is not awful, considering that we don't have any shield boosters or anything on the ship. That's really nice to have. And also the regen rate has gone down a tad, but it's only by 9%, so that's not bad either. And as for the secondary effects, we've actually got an optimal hull mass increase. So that means that the shields are actually going to be even stronger against our hull mass. So this is just a really, really nice roll overall. Now for the heatsink launcher, we're actually going to be going for increased ammo capacity. What this means is that we're going to be having one more usage of the heatsink launcher, so it's going to go and correspond with our shield cell banks. So that's going to be really nice to have. Now with this roll, the increase to your ammo is always going to be 50%. There's no way of changing this, so you can roll this as many or as few times as you want. The only thing you're going to be rolling for is basically the rolls to mass and reload time. And for the frameshift drive interdict, I'm actually going to be going for the expanded capture arc. Now I think this is the one we're actually going to go and stick with. I've only rolled a couple of times. We've got integrity increase. Our facing limit is 94%, but our power draw increase is not the worst it possibly could be. The range is also not the worst it could be, so I'm actually thinking that this is actually going to be one of the better rolls that we could get. Now, the one thing we need to go and do before we go and modify the power plant is to go and modify the weapons. And we're starting off with the beam lasers. Now, I'm going to go and fall back to my absolute favourite upgrade for these weapons, and that's going to be the efficient weapons. Now, the reason I like this is because there's no negatives at all to their operation. Not only that, but we're getting a massive reduction to the distributor draw, which is going to be going and putting a big reduction to the strain that these weapons are going to be putting on our power distributor. Couple that with our enhanced recharge, and we're pretty much going to be able to fire these weapons constantly. Now this looks to be a really, really nice roll. Now our thermal load has had a bit of a reduction, and it's below the overall field, but it's actually still a massive increase to what it was originally. It's still 46% increase to thermal efficiency. We've also got a massive increase to damage per second by 10% on this, so that's maximum as it is. We've also got an increase to armor piercing, power draw is almost maxed out, and the distributor draw is almost maxed out. So that's really nice. I can actually go and live with the fact that we've had a little bit of reduction to the thermal load and a small mass reduction. So I'm actually going to go for thermal vent. Now bear in mind, if you do go and modify the experimental effects on your weapons, you're going to be losing anything from 1 to 2 ranks with the engineer. 2 ranks if the weapon did not have a experimental effect at all to begin with. But if it did and it just wasn't the one you wanted, you will lose 1 rank for modifying that to the one you want. Now for the cannons, what I'm actually thinking of going and doing is rolling on the long range. Same as I would probably go and do with plasma accelerators. Now the reason I want to have this is it's going to increase our shot speed, because the main drawback of cannons, especially gimbaled cannons, is the lower velocity of their shells. So unless you're close up, it's kind of a crapshoot as to whether or not you're actually going to be hitting the target, considering that they're going to be moving around all the way in a 3-dimensional space. So actually being able to nail those shots is going to be hinging on how quickly you can get your shot to the target, especially if you're going to be wanting to snipe specific modules on a target ship. You know, this is really going to do. This is actually 97% increases to all of our specific ones that we want. We're also getting a mass increase, but that's kind of par for the course with this ship today. And we're getting a power draw increase as well, but considering that these weapons don't draw a lot of power in the first place, it's not actually that bad. Secondary effects, we've got an increase to damage per second as well as damage. Now the next one is one that I haven't seen for a while. It may be a new inclusion or just because I haven't used cannons for a while, I just haven't seen it. But what it is a high yield shell. Now what this does is if you penetrate the target's hull, the shell will actually go and damage multiple internal modules. Now that's going to be it for modifying everything. I haven't gone and modified the shield cell banks because I generally don't like doing that. The last thing to go and do now is actually go and modify the power plant. But now all we need to do is just go and work out exactly how much extra power we need. So we can do that by looking over at the modules. Now you can see we only are 10% over our maximum power usage. So that's not bad. In fact, we can come into power plants and we can go and have a look at what we need in overcharged. Now in fact, if we get a really good roll, we could make do with a grade 1, which is really nice. So let's actually go and see if we can do this. And here we go. We've now gone and got an increase of 14% to our overall power production, which is really nice. And for this, we've only got a reduction of 8% to integrity and 5% to heat efficiency. Now, jumping back into the outfitting department, we can go and have a look at just what we've done to the ship. Integrity has gone up by a good amount. Top speed has gone up to 388 meters per second, which is definitely nothing to be sniffed at, and that's just cruising speed. Boost speed is 488 meters per second, at least on paper. In practice, I reckon that's going to be a little bit close to 480, but yeah. As you can see, the grand total weight of the ship is around about 580 tons, which is quite extensively heavy. With the added force of our thrusters, we should be able to force this thing around quite nicely. As for our jump range, without any cargo in here at the moment, we can actually get to 27.77 light years, which is really nothing to be sniffed at. It's close to 30 light years, which is very respectable, especially for a dedicated combat ship. Now what we can go and do is go and put a fuel scoop in, so if we did want to jump around, we could actually go and do that a lot more easily. And we don't even need to go and increase our power output for that, because we can just go and set our fuel scoop to priority 3, or the lowest priority that you want, so that as soon as you pull your weapons out, it actually goes and deactivates. Now the only thing left to do is to actually go and see how well this ship actually goes and performs in some combat. And considering that we've modified this ship up so extensively, we're going to go and test this out in a hazardous resource extraction site. Okay, our first target is up, and we have a vulture. So let's go and target its power plant, and then go and say hello. Ooh, hello you. And I've got to say, the maneuverability of this ship, even on 1 pip, is actually very nice. Ooh, that's interesting. He's hitting us with some plasma accelerators, which is very nice to go and see. But our shields are holding up quite well, so let's go and throw a shield cell bank, a heatsink launcher as well. Now it is going to take a while to work down the hull of this ship. Not even the hull is. And there we go. He's got a launch chaff, so we're going to have to go and be careful with our lasers, because again, if we are missing, we're going to be generating more heat. So we want to be hitting him as much as possible. Now the maneuverability of the ship really is not terrible, considering how much weight we've put into it. It does drift a little bit, but it's not terrible. It's not completely unwieldy. Now he's going to launch chaff, which is fine. Just going to give us a little bit of time to go and regenerate a few things. The main issue here is that we're using small lasers against his shields, and his shields are fairly formidable. So this is going to take a while. The longer we can keep our weapons trailed on him, the better. Now I do think he actually went and hit that asteroid. So let's go and see if we can capitalize on this. And we're very close to getting his shields down. As soon as this chaff wears off, we should be able to get that done. And there we go, shields are down. So let's start firing the cannons. Now with the increased range of these, we can actually go and fire quite happily and actually hit him quite consistently. Not only that, we don't really need full pips into weapons to be able to go and fire quite effectively. Now I do think we've actually gone and taken out his thrusters. No, he's completely taken out his power plant. Now we've also gone and damaged his frameshift drive, his life support. Now that was quite interesting. He seemed to have dropped off to silent running, which was actually quite nice. Now he's just trying to get away. but we have cannons with much faster shot speed and a longer range. So that is really nice. In fact, he didn't really stand a chance. Now, we did use quite a few more shield cell banks than I normally would have liked, but you know me, I always forget to put pips into systems. Now, our second target is going to be this guy here, a Federal dropship. Now, this is a very, very different beast to what we were fighting beforehand. So let's go and see just how quickly we can take his shields down. Now, I suspect it's going to be a little bit quicker than the Vultures because the dropship isn't exactly known for its shields. It does have shield cell banks, however. Well, it looks like we're going to be losing our shields because we're fresh out of shield cell banks. But we did build this thing tanky, so let's go and see just how tanky this thing's going to be. So we don't want to be scared about losing our shields. This guy seems to be more worried about losing his. So we're going to try and press this as much as we possibly can. There we go, his shields are down. Time for the cannons. Now, he seems to be doing a lot of damage to his power plant. Now, the second we take that out, I want to go and see just what damage we've done to the other internal modules. Now, we are face tanking a lot of his shells. I am concerned that our canopy may not hold up to this, but there we go. We've taken out his power plant. Now let's go and have a look at his sub-targets. So let's go and have a look. Cargo hatch is down, drivers down, cannons are damaged, frag cannons are damaged, heatsink launchers, power plant, frameshift drive is nearly dead. So there we go, frameshift drive is dead, life support is dead, power distributor is almost dead. There we go, now it's almost completely dead as well. Now he seems to want to get out of here pretty badly. And again, I know I'm face tanking this, but I just want to test how tanky this ship has actually become. And considering that we are a small ship, we seem to have come away quite handily there. Okay, so what do I think about this ship once it's been heavily modified? Now, I think this ship, the way we modified it at least, is still a little bit drifty. But that's fine, because we put a lot of weight into it, and normally I wouldn't put that much in. I just wanted to see what kind of extreme we could push it to. I've got to say that it was a lot of fun, and with the cannons being able to snipe not just the target internal modules, but all the other internal modules surrounding it, that was very nice for crippling enemy ships. Now, I've got to wonder whether that type of modification will be useful for PvP, not just PvE. I'm not really sure, because from what I understand is if you're in PvP, if your shields go down, you generally just try and run the hell away. But I'm not a PvP pilot, so I can't really say anything. But I've got to say, I did find this a lot of fun, and it is nice to go and fly smaller ships from time to time. I'm starting to think I may go and add one of these to my fleet one day. We'll have to go and see. But what did you guys think of the way we modified this up? Do you think we pushed it to its absolute maximum potential, or do you think we went the complete wrong way about it? Let me know, as always, down in the comments, and I'll do my level best to get back to as many of you as I can. That's going to be it for this video. Like it if you've liked it, dislike it if you didn't. If you don't want to miss any videos by me, go and smash that bell icon, join the notification squad, you're not going to regret it. But I've been Commander Chaos Wolf from Sci-Fi Gaming. You guys, as always, have been epic. I will see you soon. And until next time, my fellow commanders, keep flying and stay shiny.